So thank you for coming out here on this fine sunny night.
Thank you for rain.
Yeah, you never know in Sonoma. It's always, any event, it's always sort of a crapshoot as to what's going to happen. And sometimes, you get overwhelmed, and sometimes you get whelmed. I call this a whelm. So anyway, I want to thank you all. Couple of thank yous. In particular, I want to thank Catherine Thorpe from Ad Astra Winery, who supplied the wine for us to drink, and that was sweet. And also my son Tobias, who did close-up magic for many of you, hopefully all of you, just as an added frisson, and of course to Rosie for what she did. Actually, what I should do, in the back of every book, I don't know, in the back of this book at least, there is acknowledgments that is more broadly based and more well thought out than I just said. And I'd like to read that if I may. It's a little thing, because it tells you what writing a book is about, really. Even though it has my name on it, I'm very aware that whatever I write is a collaborative effort. Many people helped me finish this book. Thank you to the staff of Reader's Books for reading it early on and for allowing me to fool around in my office writing fiction when I should have been out front selling it. Thanks also to Colleen Dunn Bates, my former publisher, who helped edit and nail down LA's shifting geography. As you know, I've been out of LA for a while, and the neighborhoods are not the same as I remember them. Most of this is in my head. So, thanks to Ron Rayleigh and Cheryl Howard for their narrative and linguistic expertise, and profound gratitude to Beth Hansen, whose level-headedness and compassion kept me sane during the pandemic. Without these folks around, it never would have happened. And of course, thanks to Lila, my North Star. So that's that part. I'm not going to keep you all that long. I thought I'd talk a little bit about, rather than go through the whole mishigas about how I started writing these things down in LA, and it's a long story, and some of you have heard it before. I talk a little bit about how I write these books in general. Some people write. I went to a conference, and some mystery writers, they are planners and researchers, and they plot the whole damn thing out, and they know what's going to happen in each chapter, and like that, and they've got a line graph on their wall, and it's quite elaborate. I'm not like that, so I'm sort of a seat of the pants kind of guy, and in fact, when I write my essays every week, I never know what I'm going to write about when I sit down. It's just whatever pops into my head, which sometimes is better than others, and who knows. But that's just the way it is. So in writing these books, it's kind of like the way I make breakfast every morning. Some people, I don't know if some people plan their breakfasts, but I come out and I look in the icebox and I take an egg out. I say, okay, I'll start with an egg. And then I see what else is there. And I say, oh, there's a tomato, and there's some leftover mushrooms, and there's, cheese, something. And I throw them all together, and you have breakfast. So that's kind of how I write these books. I don't start with there are about 5 elements to writing these books, and I try to include them all in they're like ingredients in something. So like one of them is the plot, obviously. I don't really care about the plot. The plot is the least interesting part of it to me, and it's it's a mystery, and I hang the story on a mystery. Somebody has to get killed. Maybe several people have to get killed. In this one, several people get killed. And I also do a kind of an homage to L.A., where I grew up in Pasadena and L.A. And that is mainly pulling things out of my head that I remember or misremember. I don't know. And I just write about them. And then there's a kind of I try to do a kind of a social, moral, political theme behind each one. I don't always succeed with this, but this one is about homelessness. This is about a serial killer of homeless people, which is fun for the whole family, you know. And that's the backdrop. And then the main thing that I concentrate on are the voices of the characters themselves, because my theory is that it's about Amos Parisman largely, and I want you to fall in love with this guy and to resonate with him, or to see how he thinks, and to root for him. And if my theory is that if you don't like him, you're not going to read the book. I mean, that's how I am. If I don't like the main character in a book, I won't read it. So that's where that goes. And then when this is, and sometime where in between all of that, I kind of sprinkle in a little Yiddishkeit, some Yiddish words and some phrases to give it some seasoning, you know, and that adds things to it. So those are the elements of these books, really. If you look at them, they all have various amounts of those things. And I guess I could read a little bit from the beginning, and just to give you a taste of what it's like. I don't want to read too much because it's a mystery, and I will give it away, you know. Although when I start writing it, I don't know who did it either. So it's always a surprise to me. This is the prologue. It was my cousin Shelley who talked me into joining the Marines, even though he couldn't go on account of his flaming ulcer. I would, he said. You know I would, Boychik, but since they won't take me, you need to go instead. You're the only person I trust to fill my shoes. You don't realize how much you owe this country, Amos. Think about it, all the blessings. Shelley was always a great talker. Student body president 3 years in a row, head of the debate team. He could talk the skin off a banana if he wanted to back then. And I was young and stupid and sick of being a Hollywood teenager. I believed every word. And when I damn near died in Vietnam and came back, it was Shelley who met me at the airport with a bottle of champagne. Shelley, who took me aside at my Aunt Esther's memorial and advised me to go to school again. Go to Berkeley, he said. It's your kind of place, for which I'm grateful for, because that's how I met Loretta. I don't know what I would have done without her. But all this is beside the point. Or no, the point is that Shelley and I go way back. We were kids together, and now, hard to believe, we're two old men together, a couple of genuine altakachkas, if you know what I'm saying. An altakachka is an old duck. Okay. And here I am, after all these years, sitting across from him at a rickety table in the farmer's market, the sun streaming down, me with a plate of hummus and falafel and a club soda, him with a Mexican beer and a cheeseburger. In his 70 years, Shelley's gotten fat and bald. He's had several cancerous moles removed from his face, and he's had 3 wives, each of whom left him and probably no longer speak to him. But nothing's changed. He hasn't stopped giving advice. You should hang out with us sometime, he says now. With who, I say? Clue me in, Shelley. These days it seems like all we ever do is go to funerals. He says, you know me, Amos. I'm not a religious man. What's God ever done for me? All I care about is community. Community, pure and simple. And then he explains to me that he and his friends have put together a little club, Very informal, no pressure whatsoever. They call themselves the Jews who eat. Funny name, huh? Hell, half of them aren't even Jewish. And even the ones who are, they're behind in their dues. Let's put it that way. But still, they're like my own family. And all they want to do is meet and talk and shoot the shit. And eat, of course. It's like being backstage on opening night. Everybody's happy, he says. I can tell you're not ready to throw in the towel yet. You're not that old. You want another shot at happiness, no? So come. He clutches my hand like he's a used car salesman sealing the deal. After a speech like that, you can't say no flat out. So I wag my head diplomatically from side to side. I tell him, okay, maybe, I'll sleep on it. But the more I do, the more I wonder just where Shelley's sage advice is going to land me next. Maybe I've known him too long, or maybe I'm just extra careful now about who I call a friend. Part of being a good detective, I've decided, is you always keep at least one card face down on the table. If everyone knows what you have, well, brother, you don't have anything. So that's the prologue. I'll read, I don't know, a few pages from the first chapter. The crumpled corpse at the bottom of the big green dumpster looked familiar. I'd seen her before, but it took a minute or two before I remembered where. Then it hit me. The homeless lady I passed every week on my walk around the neighborhood. Sure, the one missing half her teeth, the one with the purple scarf draped over her head, always napping at the bus stop on 3rd. The one who broke into a happy little soft shoe once when I handed her $1. That one. So she's local? Lieutenant Malloy asks. About as local as they come, I say. You don't remember her name by any chance, do you? She never told me her name. We didn't talk a lot. All she had was a cardboard sign. Homeless people matter, I think it said. Bill Malloy folds his arms together. That's swell, he says. These days, every time we see each other, it's because somebody on his beat turns up dead. We try to socialize, sure, but the truth is, we're different. Maybe it's a cultural thing, I don't know. Still, here we are, in the middle of February. It's the middle of February. There are probably only 3 people in Los Angeles who can remember the last time it rained. Right, I can. Right now, the sun is shining. The temperature is climbing, and we're standing around in this godforsaken alley, the lieutenant and me. Murder is about the only thing that binds us together. That and luck. My bad luck to be taking my usual morning stroll and walk right into a full-blown crime scene. We peer down into the dumpster one more time. A trio of flies have started buzzing lazily above her bare neck, landing, taking off, landing again, waiting maybe to see if she reacts, if she doesn't. Malloy turns his head. He nods to the forensic guys in the silver minivan. They should go ahead and do whatever it is they do. Who found her, I asked. The barista from the coffee bar came out this morning to toss in a couple of bags from last night. Nice kid, teenager. This is her first real job. Scared the living shit out of her. I can imagine. No, not the way you want to start off your Monday, huh? He doesn't respond, but the wheels are turning inside. Malloy is beyond a doubt the most decent cop I've ever met. Just seeing that poor black woman lying there in the garbage is going to send him to the medicine cabinet. Not now, maybe, but later. How'd she die? Dunno, he says. His voice is flat. He tugs absent-mindedly at his tie. It's an old pale blue silk thing with tiny sailboats crisscrossing back and forth. Bill's the only man I know who collects ties. Now that I think about it, he's practically the only one I know who wears them anymore. Looks like someone went after her head with a hammer, he says, but I'll leave that to the scientists. Whoever he was, he didn't like her, that's for sure. A pair of deputies are quietly spooling out the yellow plastic tape, making a perimeter, and there are 3 black and white cruisers parked at one end with their blinkers going. On Beverly Boulevard, a handful of curious pedestrians have stopped to watch, but only for a minute. A police photographer is perched on an 8-foot aluminum ladder, snapping away at the dumpster from all angles. Malloy and I meander down the alley in the other direction. Even as he's talking, I see his eyes scanning the gritty pavement back and forth, hoping, maybe praying for clues. This won't be easy, he says after a minute. No motive, no witnesses. Hell, we don't even have the victim's name. Almost like it didn't even happen. You'd like it better that way, I'm sure, I say. And when he gives me a startled look, I add, if it never happened. I would. Whenever I see something like this, it makes me wish I'd never given up drinking. I pat him on the shoulder. After years of sobriety, I'm sure he's not about to fall off the wagon. Not over this. He's got that talk about the higher power memorized. Still, the impulse is always there, isn't it? Well, they didn't go after her for her money. We know that much. You can't rule that out either. Another homeless Joe might have looked at her, seen something in that shopping cart he wanted. Who knows what goes on with these crazy people? They fight over crumbs half the time. We pause in front of the old lady's rusty cart. There's a metal tag that indicates it came from Ralph's originally, probably the one down on Wilshire and Hauser. Not that it makes any difference. Inside the cart are piles of moldy old clothes in white plastic trash bags, shoes and sweaters and sweatpants. Some of them folded neatly together, the rest just shoved in pell-mell. All things a veteran of the great urban outdoors would cherish. I'm kind of glad you walked in on us, Amos. I hope this, he points to the contents of the dumpster, doesn't ruin the rest of your day. I hope you don't mind. It's a strange thing to say to me, really. I've been in a fog for so long. What happens now when you wake up all alone every day? Mine? Are you kidding? This is exactly the kind of case I need. Well, it's not your case, not strictly speaking. Forget about it. No, of course not. I realize that. It's a police matter. Only I happen to know a little bit about her. I also know the neighborhood. And besides, Bill, this retirement thing, between you and me, I'd rather be dead. Don't say that, old man. You'll be there soon enough as it is. True, but for now, a body in a dumpster, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. It's exciting. Really. I can tell by the tone in his voice that I've offended some part of his Catholic soul. Well, not exciting, maybe that's the wrong word. So what's the right word? I shrug. I'm drawn to it, I guess. Some people, they look at evil and they run the other way. As they should, he says. With me, hey, it gives me a reason to get up in the morning. Malloy chuckles, shakes his head. You're a sick puppy, he says. But okay then, have at it. Just remember, this is a homeless person. Nobody cares. I mean that, Amos. I tell him I'll snoop around, see what I can dig up, get back to him. Fact is, he says, we're going to need help here. If we ever picked her up for anything, we might have her fingerprints on file. For now, the neighborhood angle is all we've got. We shake hands. Not entirely. You've also got the best Jewish detective in Los Angeles helping you out, I say. Or at least the oldest. So that's the beginning. I could read more, but I don't know if I should, because, then it goes on. And it does go on. So I would be happy to entertain any questions and try to answer anything I know, which is very little, but I will try. So, yes.
Well, you mentioned your writing style as not knowing what's going to unfold.
Yeah.
And I've heard that kind of concept about other writers. And do you get into the characters' heads in a way to decide what's going to happen next? How does the momentum pick up to go this way or that way? Is it character driven or is it story driven?
It's character driven for the most part. I have some vague idea of something happening,
Mm-hmm.
But and how Amos enters into it is another issue. But once he's there, he has a way of talking and thinking, and Malloy has a way of talking and thinking, and various other people that keep recurring in these books have their own agenda and their own way of doing things. So it's sort of like a sitcom. I mean, you look at I don't know, Seinfeld, or I don't want to I don't know all these sitcoms because I don't watch them, but you think about it, they're characters that recur, and they all they act in a similar way each show. You know, they have similar reactions to things, and their motivation is similar. So I've got these people nailed down in my head, and I have a crime that they are thrown in to deal with, and I just kind of let it cook from there and see. But you know, sometimes it goes off on a weird angle, and then I'd say this is not working, so I don't do that. But most of the time it's fine. It's just it's driven by their voice and their intention. You have to solve the crime, so that's always the momentum in the book. But that's really, in a way, that's the least the least interesting part of it to me. Who did it? It's more like why they did it, or can that be ameliorated, or you know, in some way. You know, I'm always kind of explaining these people, getting shades of gray in there with all these different people, even brutal killers like in here. You know, there are ways to explain it. You know, so.
Do you feel that you get to know the characters better now? You're on the third book. Do they become?
Do I know him better?
Yeah. Do you know the characters better? Do they interact easier in your?
Yeah, but I mean, this is not the third book, though. This is the third book, but I have 3 more books that are already done. It's really crazy what's going on here, because this is the third book that it's come out. I'm clean line editing the 4th book, which is about 2 Jewish comedians. One gets killed and blah blah. Late night comedians. I'm doing that now to give to the publisher, and I'm 9/10 of the way through the 7th book that I'm writing, which is about 70,000 words already. And so there are 3 different stories, and I'm juggling all of that at once. I've created a monster, is what I mean.
And how did you meet Amos? I mean, where did he? Is he whole cloth, or?
Amos Parisman. Well, he's sort of a composite of my father a bit, and me, and some uncles, and some I think I've said this, other irascible working class Jews I've known. People that I come from a stock of people that you know, they went to temple, but it was just like I don't think they were real believers in anything. They did it because that's what Jews did in the 30s and 40s and 50s. When my grandmother, who was Orthodox, used to come to visit us when we lived in Long Island, my parents would hide the bacon. You know, that was that. Then she left, and they bring out the bacon. But you know, but then you know, it was like a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts, but they were trying to integrate into America, and as a lot of cultures are, and you give up a lot of your atavistic beliefs and things on the way, and he doesn't believe in God. He believes in justice, which is a kind of God. I mean, I talked about we did actually, I don't know if it's in this book or in other books, but in Christian theology, correct me if I'm wrong, charity comes from the word caritas, which is Latin, and it has to do with love. It's something about love, carita, and so you give to the beggar, to the homeless person, because you love them. In Judaism, the closest they come to that is a word called tzedakah in Hebrew, which means literally translates as justice. You give not because you like this person that's sleeping in the dust, but because it's not fair that you have more than he or she does. You know, it's wrong. And so that motivation of fighting for the underdog, and that's what drives him, and that's his religion. But he knows about this. He has smatterings of religion from going to Hebrew school and all of that other stuff. So it enters in, and his parents spoke some Yiddish. So all of that comes out. Did that answer anything?
Yeah, for me.
Yeah. So.
Do you have a system of writing? Do you have a time schedule, or do you just?
Yeah. I come here in the morning, and I pay bills, and I cut up cardboard boxes in the back, and I yell at people, and I go to the bank. Actually, I don't yell at people. Go to the bank, and I do things like that. I schedule bills, and then about 11:30 or 12, I get tired of that, and I go home and have lunch, and then I write until about 2 or 3 when I start to hit a wall, and I start to fall asleep. And then I take a nap, and then sometimes I work later into the afternoon and evening. So it's the afternoon until I crash, yeah. That's my system, such as it is. But it's this stuff, what's interesting is that this flows very quickly. I've been always surprised at how many words I can lay down in a day. It's when I was trying to be a writer back in the 80s, and I was trying to be a writer, I wrote four novels then, and I'm very glad they didn't publish them. But I was such an artiste at that time. I couldn't. It was like every line was precious, you know. I don't have that problem anymore. It's just it just flows, you know. So that's what's fun, and I mean I can turn one of these things out in 9 months, 10 months. You know, it's amazing. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it though, because I mean I thought about killing him off, but I don't know. I don't want to do that, you know. I'd be in trouble. Yeah. So I'm just having fun, and he keeps getting older, and I keep splicing in other, you know, earlier novels from a slightly. I try to. If you're looking at it chronologically, he's getting older. The 6th one is what I think of as the end, but I'm working on the 7th one, which is kind of a prequel, which is it just kind of takes place around the time of the first one. I don't know. He can go on forever at that rate, you know. So yeah, that's.
How many words a day do you write?
I don't know. It depends. 500, something like that. But you know, 50,000, 70,000 words, you've got a novel. It doesn't take that long if you do that every day. And so, yeah. But I've been looking at the word count because one of these books, was it this? I think it was this book, was too long. When I turned it in, it was like 100,000 words. And they said, oh, it's too long. I went back and I started cutting out adjectives all over the place. You know, the big house? No, the house. And just getting anyway, that was fun. But it took a while to get it down to 90,000. So anyway, yeah.
When you're writing, how often do you go back and redo something that you started?
All the time. All the time. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm, for one thing is when you go ahead and you do something, you realize, wait a minute, you said he was doing something back in chapter 3, and that won't match with chapter 5, and you've got to make everything dovetail. You know, and so there's a lot of that. You know, he was married to this person for 30 years, and the other one was married to the same person for 40 years. You know, that kind of thing. You have to. It all has to get cleaned up, and an editor won't see that. And there are line editors who'll do. You know, your punctuation is bad here or something like that, but they don't look at it in the way the old time editors used to do. which is
So you
unfortunate.
have to catch that yourself?
Well, I have a few people that I have read it at various stages when it's done, and they I had this one friend of mine, Cheryl Howard, who I knew in college, and she's very good in Spanish. She was taught in El Paso, and she knows all Spanish slang and things like that. So she's always giving me information about that, what to call, say this, and how you say, something else. And I have another friend who's a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he reads it, and we talk about the narrative and the plot and whether this makes sense and maybe you should do this or that. And he takes more big organic changes to it. But and then in this book in particular, I had the geography all wrong in L.A. because I haven't. They were talking about. I think I mentioned Koreatown, for instance, which is a district of L.A. When I lived in Koreatown, it was a certain way. Not that way anymore, and it extends to a different part of LA, and you can't have a murder taking place there in a certain place because it doesn't jive with the neighborhood. So that was corrected for me, thank God. So one day I go back, I might actually take a look at it. Francis.
Do you research the crimes to find out what makes like a good crime to write about, or do you just make them up in your head?
Do I research the crimes?
Like the murders, do you
Like,
go to police
tell me what you mean.
reports and
Go to the
sort of-
police? No, I don't go to the police.
Well, but I mean,
Stay away from the
Crime
police.
magazine.
No.
or you just create the.
I have an idea of a crime, but it has to conform. It's part of that, those 5 or 6 pieces that I talked about, the L.A. and the plot and the Yiddish and the old detectives, and it all has to fit into that environment. The one I'm working on now is about a Torah that gets stolen from a temple. It's like a 200-year-old Torah, and I had to come up with this crazy plot to why they would do this, but that seems to be emblematic. And then there people get killed along the way, but because you have to have some of that. Do I research the crime? I don't think I do. I don't really do much research at all. I'm just winging it, So I'm not doing anything that gory, for one thing. I read a review, somebody, I forgot what the magazine was, that they said there are cozy mysteries and there are thrillers, and now we have the mensch mystery. I said, oh, okay. So this is really, it's a mystery, but the mystery is incidental in a way to Amos Parisman. So that's the way I look at it. And I want to keep him uppermost, even though he has a gun and he kills people and stuff. He doesn't mean to. So yeah. Any other questions? So, well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your turning out in this dreadful storm we have, and I hope you get home safe. There are more books out there if you want to buy any more, and I thank you for listening. And there will be more of this. God knows.